Ju checked the time on her wrist screen. 10 more minutes until her shift ended. 10 more minutes of putting up with Krell and Voz's comments about her exotic human features. She sighed and kept her eyes on the control panel. "A pink skin. How about joining us at the lounge later?" Krell called from across the maintenance bay. His blue scales shimmered under the bright lights. "You can tell us more about your strange human customs." Ju ignored him, focusing instead on the diagnostics running on her screen. The reactor coolant systems were showing slight irregularities, and she wanted to document everything properly before leaving. "I think she's too busy playing with her little tools," Voz said, his 4 eyes blinking in what passed for amusement among Proximans. "Humans are so dedicated to pretending they understand technology." The other aliens in the workshop laughed. Ju was the only human working in this section of Stellar Systems Corporation, and most days she felt every bit of her difference. Diagnostics completed, she muttered to herself, saving the report. Coolant flow stabilized. She stood up and stretched, her back aching from hunching over equipment all day. Around her, the massive engine room of the station hummed with energy. At least machines made sense. They didn't judge her for having only 2 eyes or soft skin without scales. "Ju, did you finish the checks on Bay 4? Han asked, appearing suddenly beside her workstation. As her supervisor, he was always professional, if a bit distant. "Yes, sir. I've sent the report to your terminal," she said. "The coolant regulation needed minor adjustments, but everything else is running normally." Han nodded, his gray skin crinkling around his eyes. Unlike Krell and Voz, Han was Lorian, a species known for their technical skills and reserved nature. "Good work," he said. "You've been consistent in your performance." It wasn't exactly warm praise, but Ju had learned to take what she could get. 6 more months on this contract, and she could apply for a position on a human-majority station. 6 more months of being the odd one out. As she packed up her tools, Krull walked by and accidentally bumped her workstation, causing her precision calibrator to fall to the floor. "Oops," he said with a mock bow. "Your human reflexes couldn't catch that, huh?" Ju bent down to pick up the tool, checking it for damage. Something strange flashed through her mind. A memory of her hands moving faster than seemed possible, grasping something much more dangerous than a fallen tool. The image vanished as quickly as it had come. 783, she said quietly. "What's that, human?" Voz asked, leaning closer than necessary. "Nothing," Ju replied. "Just counting the days until my contract ends." Walking toward the exit, Ju passed the security office where Officer Sung was reviewing the day's footage. She nodded politely, and he returned the gesture. Unlike the others, Sung never made comments about her being human. He simply did his job, which Ju appreciated. Back in her small quarters, Ju showered and changed into comfortable clothes. Her room was plain but functional: a bed, a desk, a small cooking area, and a viewer screen mounted on the wall. She prepared a simple meal and sat down to eat while checking the news. A report about increased military patrols in the outer systems caught her attention. For a moment, she felt a strange tightness in her chest, as if the news meant something important. But why would it? She was just a technician, not someone who needed to worry about military matters. That night, Ju dreamed of burning ships and a room full of aliens bowing before her. When she woke, she couldn't remember the details, only the feeling of power that had filled her in the dream. Such a contrast to her daily reality of taking orders and enduring jokes about humans. Just another day in a life that felt strangely like it belonged to someone else. Ju woke up with a start. Another strange dream. This time she saw herself standing in a grand room with high ceilings. Alien leaders cowered before her. In the dream, she felt powerful and dangerous. "Just a dream," she whispered, getting ready for work. But why did these dreams feel like memories? At the morning briefing, Han announced a new project. "We need to check old military databases for parts compatibility," he said. "Ju, you'll handle the human tech sections." Krell snickered. At least she's good for something. Ju ignored him and took the assignment. The database access would be a nice change from repair work. In the data center, Ju sat at a terminal and entered her work ID. The screen flashed blue, then red, with large warning text. Biometric match. Security level ALPJ. Extreme CA Ocean. Ju blinked in surprise. But before she could read more, the warning disappeared, replaced by the normal database welcome screen. That was weird, she muttered, looking around to see if anyone else had noticed. Officer Sung stood a few meters away, watching her with a slight frown. Had he seen the warning? He turned away quickly when their eyes met. Ju spent the next few hours searching for part specifications. As she worked, she found herself understanding military equipment she'd never seen before. How did she know that an S-7 thruster needed special cooling systems, or that Proximan weapon mounts had hidden override codes? When she stretched her arms, her sleeve pulled back, revealing a small mark on her wrist. Had that always been there? It looked like a tiny scar, but underneath, something seemed to pulse faintly blue. The station-wide announcement system crackled to life. Attention all personnel. Prepare for a visit from the Proximan ambassador in 3 standard days. All sections will undergo security checks. Ju noticed how Han's face tightened at the news. He looked worried, even scared. At lunch, Ta, a junior technician, sat across from Ju in the meal hall. Ta was the closest thing Ju had to a friend on the station. "Did you hear about the ambassador?" Ta asked, keeping her voice low. "Everyone's acting strange. I saw 3 security teams checking the visitor quarters." "Maybe it's normal for an ambassador visit," Ju suggested. "No, this is different. I overheard Han talking to Sung. They mentioned her and keeping things quiet. I think they were talking about you." Ju almost dropped her fork. "Me? Why would they talk about me?" Before Tai could answer, Krell and Vaz approached their table. "Planning to meet the ambassador, pink skin?" Krell asked, his scales shifting to a darker blue. "Think he'll be impressed by your primitive human ways. Maybe she'll teach him how humans mate," Vaz added with a crude gesture. Something flashed behind Ju's eyes. For a split second, she saw herself holding Vaz by the throat, high off the ground. She blinked, and the image was gone. "Just leave me alone," she said quietly. "Or what?" Krell leaned closer. "Will you cry human tears?" Ju stood up suddenly, and both aliens stepped back, their bodies tensing as if expecting an attack. Even they seemed surprised by their reaction. That night, the dreams were worse. Ju saw ships burning against the blackness of space. She saw herself walking through smoke-filled corridors, past bodies of Proximan soldiers. In her hand was a small device with a blinking light. She woke up sweating, heart racing. The small mark on her wrist was glowing faintly blue now, pulsing with her heartbeat. Outside her window, military ships moved through the darkness. More than usual. Much more. On her view screen, a news report showed the Proximan ambassador's ship approaching the station. The reporter mentioned strengthening diplomatic ties and moving past historical tensions. As the ambassador's face appeared on screen, Ju felt a sharp pain behind her eyes. She knew him. Somehow, she knew him. And worse, she was certain he would recognize her too. The next day, Ju worked in the main engine room. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, checking systems before the ambassador's arrival. The station needed to be in perfect condition. "Hey human, pass me the plasma spanner," called Vaz from above. He was working on a loose ceiling panel. Ju grabbed the tool and walked it over to him. As she handed it up, she noticed a large metal beam above Vaz was shaking loose. Time seemed to slow down. The beam broke free with a loud crack. It was massive. At least 300 kilos of metal falling directly toward Vaz and 2 other workers. Without thinking, Ju leaped forward. Her arms shot up, and she caught the beam. The impact drove her feet into the floor, creating small dents in the metal, but she held it. The room went silent. What? How? Vaz stared at her, all four eyes wide with shock. Ju was just as surprised. She was holding a beam that should have crushed her. After a moment of confusion, she pushed it aside, letting it crash to the floor away from the workers. "That's impossible," whispered one of the aliens. "No human is that strong." Han rushed over. "Is everyone all right?" His eyes fixed on Ju with a strange mixture of worry and recognition. "It was just adrenaline," Ju said quickly, looking at her hands. "They weren't even scratched. Humans can do amazing things when scared." No one believed her, but they pretended to. Work resumed with nervous glances in her direction. Only Tai approached her later. "Ju, when you caught that beam, your eyes, they glowed blue for a second." Ju felt cold. "What? No, that's not possible." "I saw it," Tai insisted, "and I'm not the only one who noticed." After her shift, Ju hurried back to her quarters. In her small bathroom, she examined her wrist more carefully. The small mark was definitely not a scar. Something was under her skin. Using a small knife, she made a tiny cut. There was no pain, which was strange by itself. Beneath the skin was a metal object no bigger than a grain of rice. It glowed faintly blue, the same color Tai had seen in her eyes. "What is this?" she whispered. "Who put this in me?" Her door chime rang, startling her. She quickly covered the cut. Han stood in her doorway. "Ju, I need to talk to you about what happened today." "It was just adrenaline," she said again. Han stepped inside, closing the door. "We both know that's not true." He lowered his voice. "People are asking questions. The security footage has been accessed by external systems." "What external systems?" "Military intelligence. They're sending people to the station tomorrow." Han looked genuinely concerned. "I've reassigned you to the secondary maintenance tunnels for the next few days. Stay away from public areas." "Han, what's going on? Why are you helping me?" He hesitated. "Let's just say you don't want to be found." Before leaving, he added, "If anyone asks, you've been working in the tunnels all week." That night, the news showed the ambassador's ship docking at the station. When Ju saw his face again, more memories flashed through her mind. She saw this same ambassador kneeling before her, begging for mercy. She saw herself holding something precious to his people, threatening to destroy it. The pain behind her eyes grew worse. She stumbled to her sink and splashed cold water on her face. In the mirror, her eyes briefly glowed blue. The news continued. "The ambassador brings a message of continued peace between Proximans and humans, 5 years after the war that nearly destroyed both civilizations." 5 years. Something important happened 5 years ago, and Ju was part of it. Outside her window, more military ships arrived. But these weren't routine patrols. These were warships, their weapon systems clearly visible. Her wrist implant pulsed faster, matching her racing heart. Whatever she had forgotten, she needed to remember soon. Because time was running out. The company gathering was supposed to be a simple event to welcome the ambassador. All staff had to attend, even maintenance workers like Ju. She stood in the corner of the large room, wearing her cleanest uniform. She had followed Han's advice and spent the last 2 days working in the maintenance tunnels, away from curious eyes. "There's our special human," said Krell, approaching with Voss. Both wore formal uniforms and carried drinks. "Everyone's talking about your little trick with the beam." "It wasn't a trick," Ju said quietly. "Come have a drink with us," Voss suggested, stepping closer. "We want to be friends with such a strong human." Something in his tone made Ju uncomfortable. "No thank you. I need to leave soon." Krell blocked her path. "Don't be rude. The ambassador might want to meet all species working here, even humans." I said no. Ju moved to step around him. Krell grabbed her arm. "You think you're better than us now, because you caught one beam." Voss leaned in. "Maybe we should show everyone what humans are really good for." Ju pulled her arm free with surprising ease. "Touch me again, and you'll regret it." The words came out automatically, with a coldness she didn't recognize in herself. Both aliens stepped back, startled by her tone. After the gathering, things got worse. The next day, Ju found her tools damaged. The day after, safety protocols on equipment she was supposed to use were disabled. Someone was trying to hurt her. Working on a fuel line, Ju noticed the pressure gauge had been tampered with. If she had opened the valve as instructed, the resulting explosion would have killed her and damaged the station. Somehow, she knew exactly how to fix it safely. Later that week, she found critical power couplings in her work area deliberately crossed. Another deadly trap. Again, she fixed it without thinking, her hands moving with practiced skill she didn't know she had. Security cameras recorded everything. That evening, Officer Sung approached her in the empty cafeteria. "Ju, your work areas have had a lot of accidents lately," he said carefully. "Someone is trying to hurt me," she replied. Sung nodded slowly. "The strange thing is how you handle these problems. You work like someone with military engineering training. I'm just good at my job. People are asking questions about you. Important people." Sung lowered his voice. "Two officials arrived today. They're reviewing security footage of you." Ju felt her heart race. What do they want? I don't know, but they're not station security or company people. Sung hesitated. "Be careful, Ju." That night, Han came to her quarters again. "The officials asked for your personnel file," he said without greeting. "The one they have access to is mostly blacked out. They're not happy." "Why are you telling me this?" Ju demanded. "What do you know about me?" Han looked at her directly. "I know you're not just a technician. I know your file is classified at the highest levels, and I know if they find out who you really are, we could all be in danger." "I don't understand. Who am I?" "I only know pieces," Han admitted. 5 years ago, you ended the war. How you did it is classified." Before he could say more, Ju's view screen activated automatically. An emergency news alert showed the ambassador giving a speech. "We Proximans value our peace with humans," the ambassador was saying, "despite the unconventional methods used to achieve it." As he spoke, Ju felt a sharp pain in her head. More memories surfaced. A space station much like this one, but on fire, her hands typing launch codes. The ambassador, younger than, staring at her with pure hatred. "He knows who I am," Ju whispered. Han nodded grimly. "And he's here to find you." The main hall was decorated with both human and Proximan symbols. Workers had spent days preparing for the official reception. Ju stood at the back of the crowd, trying to stay hidden among the service staff. Han had wanted her to skip the event, but all employees had to attend. Security guards checked everyone at the door against the employee list. "Stay in the back," Han whispered as he passed. "Don't draw attention." The room fell silent as the ambassador entered with his security team. There were at least 20 guards, all wearing combat armor under their formal clothes. This was not a normal diplomatic visit. Station Director Pak welcomed the ambassador with formal words. "We are honored by your presence and the continued peace between our peoples." The ambassador smiled, showing pointed teeth. "Peace is valuable, even more so when it comes after great sacrifice." As he spoke, Ju felt a stabbing pain behind her eyes. The words reached her ears in two ways, translated through her earpiece, but also with direct understanding. Somehow, she knew the Proximan language without ever learning it. "Are you okay?" Tai asked, noticing Ju's discomfort. "Just a headache," Ju said. But it was more than that. With each word the ambassador spoke, more memories broke through. The ambassador moved through the crowd, greeting important staff members. When he reached the back of the room, his eyes scanned the service staff. Then he saw Ju. For a moment, their eyes locked. The ambassador's yellow eyes widened. His scales paled from deep blue to nearly white. He recognized her. He quickly recovered, turning away to speak to Director Pak. But Ju had seen his reaction. And so had his security team, who now watched her carefully. "He knows me," Ju whispered to herself. The reception continued with speeches and formal toasts. The ambassador requested a private meeting with station executives. As he left the main hall, he glanced back at Ju one last time. An hour later, Ju was walking back to her quarters when Officer Sung approached. "Ju, you need to know something," he said, checking to make sure they were alone. After the reception, the ambassador asked for all employee records. He specifically requested files on human maintenance workers. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing yet. Han told me to delay it." Sung looked nervous. "Ju, I've been ordered to place tracking on your movements, but Han told me to warn you first. Why are you both helping me?" Sung hesitated. "Han served in the war. He says he owes you, though he won't say why." He handed her a small device. "This will show you security camera locations. Be careful." Back in her quarters, Ju checked her news feed. There was nothing about the ambassador's visit, but military news showed more ships arriving in the system. The pain in her head was getting worse. She sat on her bed, clutching her temples. Suddenly, more memories flooded back. Diplomatic meetings, military briefings, and herself in a uniform she'd never worn, giving orders to high-ranking officers. A soft beep from her door panel interrupted her thoughts. A message from Han appeared on her screen. "They're coming for you. Service exit in 3 minutes." Ju looked out her window. Several unmarked vehicles had surrounded her housing block. Men in civilian clothes, but with military posture, were taking positions at all exits. Her wrist implant was pulsing rapidly now, the blue glow visible through her skin. More memories kept coming. Weapon codes, secret protocols, and the face of the ambassador, years younger, signing a document while glaring at her with hate in his eyes. Ju grabbed a small bag and stuffed it with her few personal items. Whatever was happening, she couldn't stay here. As she slipped toward the service exit, she heard the main door to her quarters being forced open. They had found her. But who was she that they wanted so badly? Ju slipped through the service exit just as she heard voices in the main corridor. She moved quickly through the maintenance tunnels, her feet finding the way without her having to think about it. Han was waiting at Junction B7, a rarely used storage area. He looked different now. Alert, focused, standing like a soldier rather than a maintenance supervisor. "We don't have much time," he said, handing her a small bag. "There's a shuttle leaving for the outer ring in 10 minutes. We need to be on it." "Han, tell me who I am," Ju demanded. "Why is the ambassador looking for me?" Han checked the corridor before answering. "Your real name is Kim Ji. 5 years ago, you ended the war between humans and Proximans. That's all I know for certain." "How did I end it?" "I'm just a technician." Han made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are definitely not just a technician. I served in military intelligence during the war. I saw your face once, in a top-secret briefing. When you applied for this job, I recognized you right away." They moved through the station's service areas, avoiding security cameras using the device Sung had given Ju. "The official story," Han continued as they walked, "is that peace was achieved through normal diplomatic channels. But soldiers talk. There are stories about a human woman who single-handedly forced the Proximans to surrender." Ju stopped walking. More memories were surfacing. A Proximan battle cruiser, her hands on a weapon, and the ambassador, younger then, kneeling before her. "I threatened them with something," she said slowly. "Something they valued more than the war." "That's the rumor." Han checked his wrist device. "The shuttle leaves in 5 minutes. We need to hurry." As they turned a corner, they came face to face with Krell and Voz. Well, Krell said, blocking their path. "The human is trying to escape. The ambassador's people are offering a reward for information about her," Voz added. "We already called them." Han stepped forward. "Move aside. This doesn't concern you." "It does now," Krell said, reaching for something in his uniform. Without thinking, Ju moved. Her body reacted with speed and precision she didn't know she possessed. In seconds, both Krell and Vaz were on the ground, unconscious. How did I? Ju stared at her hands in shock. Muscle memory, Han said, looking impressed despite the situation. Your body remembers even if your mind doesn't. They reached the shuttle bay just as the doors were closing. Han used his supervisor code to get them aboard the small transport vessel. As the shuttle pulled away from the main station, Ju looked out the window. Security forces were streaming into the residential sector she had just left. Where are we going? She asked. I have a safe house on the outer ring, Han replied. A place from my intelligence days. On the shuttle's view screen, a news report showed Ju's face. The reporter's voice was serious. Authorities are searching for this woman in connection with espionage charges. She is considered dangerous and should not be approached. Espionage. Ju stared at her own image on the screen. That's a lie. Of course it is, Han agreed. The ambassador can't admit who you really are or what you did. That would reveal the truth about how the war ended. The shuttle docked at the outer ring, a less developed part of the station where security was lighter. Han led her through crowded markets and narrow passageways to a small apartment hidden behind a repair shop. Inside, Han activated security systems and blocked the windows. We should be safe here for a while. Ju sat down, her head pounding with fragmentary memories. Han, I need to know everything. Who am I really? What did I do that was so important the ambassador would come looking for me 5 years later? Han opened a hidden compartment in the wall and removed an old military medical kit. I can help you remember, he said, preparing a neural treatment device. But I should warn you, there may be a reason your memories were suppressed. This might hurt, Han said, attaching small sensors to Ju's temples. The neural treatment will help your brain access blocked memories. Ju sat very still in the chair. Will I remember everything? Not all at once. Too dangerous. Han adjusted the device. Your memories were blocked for a reason. We'll start slowly. He activated the device. A blue light pulsed in rhythm with the implant in Ju's wrist. Pain shot through her head. Then images came, clear and sharp. She saw herself in a military uniform with commander insignia. She stood in a room full of high-ranking officers, both human and alien allies. I am Commander Kim Ji, she heard herself say in the memory. I have a plan to end this war. The memory shifted. She was on a stealth ship, moving through enemy space. A small team of special forces followed her orders without question. The peace talks are a trap, her memory self said. The Proximan leadership plans to kill our delegation and attack Earth while our defenses are down. Another flash. Ji was in an air duct above a Proximan war room. Leaders discussed their surprise attack plans. Ji recorded everything. But there was more. Ji wasn't just gathering intelligence. The memories came faster now. Ji infiltrating the Proximan command ship alone. Fighting her way through guards with remarkable skill. Finding their most sacred treasure, the genetic repository containing the ancestral DNA of all Proximan noble lines. I can destroy your entire future with one command, Memory Ji told the Proximan War Council, holding a device connected to their repository. Sign the real peace treaty, or your species loses its heritage forever. Ju gasped as the neural treatment ended. She was sweating and shaking. I blackmailed them, she whispered. I threatened their genetic repository. Han nodded. The official story is that diplomats worked out a peace treaty. But soldiers know something else forced the Proximans to surrender suddenly. But why don't I remember? Why am I a technician now? Han gave her water. The treatment is showing you more. Ready? Ju nodded, and Han activated the device again. This time she saw the peace treaty signing ceremony. Both sides looked tense. The ambassador, younger then, signed with hatred in his eyes. Then a private meeting. Human military leaders, and Ji. The peace treaty has special terms, an admiral told Ji. The Proximans demanded that you never serve in a military or diplomatic position again. They're afraid of me, Memory Ji said. Yes, And frankly, so are we. The Admiral looked uncomfortable. The treaty includes a classified section. You will receive a new identity. Your military record will be sealed, and your memories of these events will be suppressed. You're erasing me, G said angrily. It's that or risk the peace. Your choice, Commander. The memory ended. Ju opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. I agreed to it, she said, to save the peace. You were a hero, Han said quietly. You ended a war that killed millions. But heroes can be dangerous in peacetime. Ju stood up, suddenly feeling different. Her posture changed. Her eyes looked sharper. She was still Ju, but now she was also Ju. The ambassador recognized me, she said, her voice stronger now. He's afraid I'll remember and reveal the truth about how the peace really happened. It would embarrass the Proximan Empire, Han agreed. Their mighty military forced to surrender by one human woman. Ju, now G, looked at the news playing on Han's view screen. It showed more warships arriving at the station. This isn't just about embarrassment, she said. The ambassador isn't here to find me. He's here to kill me. She touched the implant in her wrist, which now glowed steadily. And he's planning to restart the war. We need to contact both governments, Ji said, pacing the small room. The ambassador is violating the peace treaty. Han looked worried. All official channels are being washed. And the news says you're a dangerous spy. No one will believe you. Ji stopped pacing. Her eyes had a determined look that hadn't been there when she was just Ju. There are unofficial channels, she said, from the war. She examined Han's communication equipment. Her hands moved with confidence, rewiring circuits and bypassing security protocols. What are you doing? Han asked. Creating a direct link to the human military command using old emergency codes. Ji worked quickly. And then I'll contact the Proximan Ruling Council directly. The Ruling Council. They'll never speak to you. Ji smiled for the first time since regaining her memories. They will when they hear what I have to say. Within an hour, Ji had built a secure communication system from Han's equipment. She activated it and spoke clearly. Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha Tango. Commander Kim Ji, authorization code Blue Horizon 496. The screen remained blank for a moment, then flickered to life. An older human general appeared, looking shocked. Commander Ji, that's impossible. You're under memory suppression. Yes, sir. Ji stood straight, like the soldier she once was. But the Proximan ambassador has violated the treaty. He's planning to restart the war. The general's expression changed from shock to concern. We've noticed unusual Proximan military movements, but we have no proof of hostile intent. I can get that proof, Ji said, but I need your help. The general nodded. What do you need? First, clear my name. I'm not a spy. Second, I need a direct link to the Proximan Ruling Council. That's difficult. Sir, I ended the war once. Let me prevent a new one. After a long pause, the general agreed. Stand by for connection. 20 minutes later, the screen showed 7 elderly Proximans sitting at a half-circle table. They were the ruling council, the true power behind the Proximan Empire. When they saw Ji, all 7 gasped. The destroyer, one whispered in their language. Ji addressed them in perfect Proximan, surprising even herself. Honorable Council, your ambassador has broken the treaty. He plans to restart the war. These are serious accusations, the head counselor said. Where is your proof? The ambassador brought warships disguised as diplomatic escorts. He's been gathering intelligence on station defenses, and he tried to have me killed. The council members looked at each other. The treaty required you to remain inactive. I was inactive until your ambassador hunted me down, Ji replied. The treaty also required your government to maintain peace. I kept my part of the bargain. Now you must keep yours. Ji explained the ambassador's actions in detail, showing evidence Han had gathered. She spoke with authority about Proximan military protocols and cultural values that only someone intimate with their society would know. "Remind your ambassador what happened last time," G said firmly. "Remind him what I did, and what I can do again if needed." The head counselor nodded slowly. "We will address this matter." After the call ended, Han stared at G with new respect. That was impressive. "It's not over," G said. "We need to get back to the main station. That's too dangerous. The station is where this will play out. I need to be there." News reports that evening showed something unexpected. The Proximan warships were leaving. The ambassador had been recalled for consultations. At the same time, human military channels removed all mention of G as a spy. Instead, they announced a special diplomatic representative would be arriving at the station. "That's us," G told Han. "Time to go back." As they prepared to return, G looked at herself in the mirror. She was no longer just Ju the technician, but she wasn't only Commander Jai either. She was both. "Ready to face your old colleagues?" Han asked. G smiled. "Actually, I'm looking forward to seeing the look on Krell and Voz's faces when they learn who I really am." The shuttle docked at the main station 3 days later. G stepped out wearing a simple but elegant uniform, not military but clearly official. Han followed in his regular clothes. News of her return had spread quickly. A crowd gathered in the docking area. Director Pack and other station officials waited nervously. "Commander G," Director Pack said, bowing slightly, "we weren't properly informed of your position during your time here." "That was the point, Director," Jai replied with a small smile. "But now things have changed." As they walked through the station, people stared. Some looked afraid. Others seemed curious. Word had spread about her true identity, though most details remained classified. In the main operations room, G met with station leaders, human military officials joined by video link. A representative from the Proximan Ruling Council was also present remotely. "The ambassador has been removed from his position," the Proximan representative announced. "The Ruling Council reaffirms our commitment to the peace treaty." "And the human government accepts this resolution," replied the human official. "Commander J will remain as our special representative to ensure continued stability." Director Pack looked confused. "Does this mean Commander G will be leaving the station?" G shook her head. "Actually, I have been appointed as the new Chief of Interspecies Relations for Stellar Systems Corporation. I'll be staying right here." After the meeting, Jai returned to her old work area. The maintenance bay fell silent as she entered. Workers stared in disbelief. Tai approached first. "So, not just a technician, huh?" "Not just a technician," Jai agreed, "but still the same person who fixed coolant systems with you." "That's hard to believe." Ta looked at her with new eyes. "Is it true what they're saying? That you ended the war yourself?" "Wars are complicated," G said carefully. "But yes, I played a role." Krell and Voz stood in the corner, looking extremely uncomfortable. When G walked toward them, they stepped back in fear. "You too," J said, her voice calm but firm. "I believe you'll be getting new assignments soon. There's a maintenance position on the far outer ring that needs filling." Krell's scales had turned pale. "We didn't know who you were." "That's the point," Jai replied. "You shouldn't treat anyone the way you treated me, regardless of who they are." Later that day, G moved into her new office. It was spacious, with a view of the stars. Han visited her there. "The human military wants you back," he said. "They offered you admiral rank." G shook her head. "I declined. I've had enough of military life." "So you're really staying here? As a corporate officer?" "Yes." G looked out at the stars. The peace treaty wasn't just signed in grand halls. Real peace happens in places like this, where different species work together daily. Even after how they treated you. Jai smiled. "Especially after that. If I want things to change, I need to be part of making that change happen." In the weeks that followed, Jai established new policies for interspecies cooperation. She set up training programs and cultural exchange events. The station became a model for other facilities. One evening, as Ji worked late in her office, Ta brought in some personal items from her old quarters. "I found these when they cleaned out your technician housing," Ta said, placing a small box on the desk. "Thank you." Jai opened the box, finding a few mementos from her time as Jew. "Can I ask you something?" Ta hesitated. "Why come back here at all? After everything that happened, you could go anywhere." Jay picked up a small tool from the box, the precision calibrator that Krell had once knocked to the floor. "Great victories aren't always won in battles or dramatic confrontations," she said thoughtfully. "Sometimes they happen in maintenance bays and cafeterias, one small interaction at a time." She placed the tool carefully on her desk. "And yes," she added with a smile, "seeing Krell and Voz's faces when they realized who I was, that was pretty satisfying too."